Okay, I saw a few things in the Halachas Gedolos and Rav Sadigain, which I thought shed some light on the issues of Mitzvah Kuf Sadi Beis and Kuf Sadi Gimel. I'd like to go over them now. We discussed last week, maybe you shouldn't be moina the mitzvah of Yod to be meicher a mokim outside of the machne, because it basically is a hagdomo to the mitzvah of chafalta. And we discussed various options of, is it a separate kiyum by itself? I found very interesting is that the Halachas Gedolos counts only one mitzvah, and he only counts Yosed, not Yod. And that's in Kuf Nun Gimel, in the mitzvahs Kuf Aseh, v'hochein Yosed al Azeinecha. You should have a Yosed, but the Yod, he doesn't talk about. So I was wondering, and it may be correct that maybe the Halachas Gedolos only counts the mitzvah of Yosed and not Yod. Because of this problem, he thinks that that Yod is only Achona. Now, we were discussing last week, the Minchas Chinuch asked the kasha, maybe the mitzvah of Yod should be b'mei raglayim, and Yosed should be in Soya. And he says the Gemara Bracha supports it. And the Smag is also like that. So I wanted to point out that also Rav Sadigain is like that. In Perik Esrim ve'arbo Shah Muchomus, he has the 24th Perik is the Shah Muchomus. V'yod tiyelecho umi sheniskak lasei srochim gam hu olav lotzeis. Hoishoyne shevehen kloli amachna nilchom v'chule. Osra hatera lahatil boy mayim. Umi sheniskak lekach olav lotzeis michutzaloi. Kfi she'oma v'yod tiyelecho. So that's the mitzvah meraglai. Umi sheniskak lasei srochim gam hu olav lotzeis v'yachbo badomo v'yosid mi barzel shehei munach v'yachad im kli nishkei v'kasha osa tzrochav olav l'chasoisam b'ofer. So he has Yod as far as meraglayim and Yosed as far as Soyed, which is exactly like the Smag. I mean, the Smag is like him. Now, I just wanted to say that coming to a conclusion that as a machlokes, the Sifri and the Talmud, because the Sifri clearly says that Yod is also about Soya, Asiyah Socha, would only help you partially. It will help you to explain what the Ram does in Minyan HaMitzvos. But no one argues that when it comes to halacha, you have to pass like Talmud Bavli. So there should be an Isa of Me'aglaim in the Machna from the Gemara Brachos. And the Ram doesn't quote it in Mishnah Torah. And when the Gemara in Brochus discusses it, even though the Gemara is not talking about Machne, because the Gemara is Amar Yehuda, Safik Tzoya, Asura, Safik Meraglayim, Mutarim, Ike di Amre, Amar of Yehuda, Safik Tzoya, Bebayis Muteres, Ba'ashba Asura, Safik Meraglayim, Afilu Ba'ashba Nami Mutarim. So, ki haitano, ki hod yom menuna, lo asater el keneged ha'omud bilvad. So the Ram doesn't quote this Gemara. He does quote about Suffolk, but he doesn't quote that neged ha'omud is a deraisa. So beyond that, if you look at the Rambam in Perek Gimel of Hilchos Kriyishma Halacha Tezvav, the Rambam says like this: "Hoyekir Kriyishma bebayis estapik lo im yeshom soya o mei raglayim o ein shom harizeh mutar likrois hoyekir beashpo v'estapik lo im yeshom soya o ein shom lo yikro." Shecheskas ho'ashpo shehi mokom atinoifes. There's a chazaka that ashpo is mokom atinoifes. Avol sofik me'raglayim afilu ba'ashpo mutar likros. So the Rambam introduces something which we don't have in the Gemara, and he says the pshat in ashpo is that there's a chazaka, there's tinoifes there. For some reason, you also have to have a suffix that there's soya there, and once you have a suffix, we say l'chumut. The question is it based on a deraisa, or it's a combination of a suffix and the chazaka, and that's enough to make it also. So the Ram doesn't say clearly at any point what the din of suffix soya, and he doesn't have b'chlal the din of Keneged Omud. So basically, we have no clue how the Rambam interpreted the Gemara, and we also have no clue if the Rambam is passing like the Gemara, or he had some other source that he discounted the Gemara. Now, next. The question is, in this parsha, when we're talking about Muchama, it says lo yira lo yora b'chol elvas dover. So the Rambam learns in Hilchos Melachim Milchamos, he doesn't quote anything at all about elvas dover there. And he doesn't, when he's talking Kriyishma, he just says you shouldn't read Kriyishma Keneged Elba, but it could be Deraisa Darbona. We have no clue. Okay. And we also have to know what Elvas Dava means. Does it need Keneged seeing something of Elva? Or does it mean Arayis, Isurim? So if you look at the Moira Nevuchim, in Chele Gimel, Perek Mem Aleph, Mima shekol oisei zeh Sefer, Haskonas Yod v'Yosei, ki mikavonas zeh satera, kmo she'aditicha anikion v'zoye min al-chuchim v'amuusim v'shelo yiyeh ha'odem kibehemos. Person shouldn't act like animals. U'v'zeh sakavon legam ken chizuk o emunas Hamonas hanilchomim be'elu amasim she'ashchina shoyer b'neihem. So give them an actual, a physical manifestation that the Shechina is there. Therefore, we act in this way. כמו שאומרים, בסיבה זה, כי השם אלוקיך מסהלך בקרב מחנך. וגילגל עניין אחר ואומר, ולא יראה לך ערבס טוב. ושוב מאחריך. The Shechina will depart if it sees ערבס טוב. להזהיר ולהפחיד. It's to tell people to be careful not to do something and to get them in trepidation, להפחיד. ממה שהוא ידוע, מזנוס אנשי החיל במחנה. We're interested in controlling and putting a cap on the znus, on the illicit relations and what the soldiers usually do. Why? Why do they usually do this? And they lose themselves. V'tzivo yizborach b'pu'ulois she'azkiru oisonu she'ashchina shoyra b'serchenu v'bnei she'nenatzer min ha'ma'asim mehem. The whole purpose of saying that the Shekhinah is here is to save that the army should be an army of morality and not to be involved in arayis. Ad shebalkeri. So what's balkeri? Why is balkeri also in the machne? So we were talking before. We'll come back to Mitzvah Hashem because the machne mechom is machne shchina. So the balkeri has to go out, and we'll talk about this more. But the Ram says in Mo Nevuchim, Ad shebalkeri tzivul hotziu min hamachne ad she'arav shimshai ve'acha yovel hamachne. That a balkeri has to leave the machne. Ad she'yeh b'leiv kol odom she'hamachne k'mikdas Hashem u'she'eno k'machnes hagoyim lehefsid u'la'averes v'hizik zulosam v'kachas mamono v'lo l'dova acher. Aval kavona seinu anachnu yoshe b'nei odom la'avodas Hashem v'sidrei inyonim. V'adiacho ze aniyu min hakosu. So it comes out that he's learning that Ehovas Dovo is an issue of arayis. It's not the Gemara about the seeing Erva, B'shasti saying Kriya Shema Torah, but it's talking about arayis itself. And the Isa Balkeri is goofa to tell us that the machne is K'mikdash Hashem. Now, let's go further. So basically, let's go back for a second. We don't know how he's interpreting, but he says lahazi lahafchid mashiadu biznus. So the Ram is very clear, lahazir, that there's an ashara here. So if there's an ashara of lo yeh b'chol elvas dovo, should have been a mitzvah minyan mitzvahs. And the emissaries, the Ramban says there is. The Ramban in Lavim, sheshochach harav, Yud Aleph, shem nimnanu, b'tzeisenu machne al hoyivim, mikol dover ra, go shvichas domim, V'zulosoi min averis hagomas sichus shchina. Min hamachne. V'om yisale, yisei se machne yevecho, nishmat mikol dovaro. V'omroi yisale, kashem elchem yisale b'kerb machnecha, latzil chov l'osei so yevecho b'yadecha. Mech kodesh. V'oye machnecha kodesh, v'oye b'cho elvas dovo. Nishmat. As hosh in the shtame shelo yire bono elvas dovo. It means arayis. And we can't shnei lavim. B'yin echod lechizuk. V'im hu tam loima v'lishmat mikol dovo ro lav moinei oisonu me'elu averis b'machne. So here, maybe Pshat Neramim is that since there is an Ashol and Agayis in other places in the Torah, the fact that there's a special mention of Agayis or Shvichas Doma called the Vara, which was anyway also in Milchama, is not a reason to make another mitzvah minyan mitzvahs. And as we saw before, that V'lo yeh b'choy elvas dovo is an ashara, but it's not that V'lo yeh b'choy elvas dovo v'shava achrecha, that if you have such a thing, then God will leave the machna, but it's an isa. And the Ramban says that you shouldn't say such a thing, but maybe the Ram does. Al tishtabesh v'toima k'me'acha she'ein halav hazeh monea oisonu rak me'averis menuos. It's not new isurim, but it's old isurim. The Torah says, be careful about a machna. Eino bo b'minyan. Shezeh eino lav sheyichpo. So he says that's not true. Shezeh eino lav sheyichpo b'chol mokom v'chizuk b'vad. Avo nisyached loy mokom lavo olav b'shnei lavim b'mokom hazeh. They're two different isa. There's the old isa and a separate isa of machna. That's what the Rambam learns. But the Rambam clearly says in Meira that it's an ashara, and also clearly doesn't count it. We pointed out last week that the Rambam says that the Isa of Yad and Yosei are completely independent of the Oren being there. That's the last Rambam in Perek Vav of Hilchos Melachim Milchamos. Uben she'esh imo en Oren, uben she'en imo en Oren, kach heim oisen tomid. Shneim v'oyem machanecha kodesh. Now, we pointed out last week that the Re'im says it depends upon Oren. V'lomo, when he explains the Isa of Yosef, V'lomo, B'tanya ozlechein ozlechel l'mokum zaynecha she'iten Yosef etzel kli zaynoi li'o yismuch k'shit starech. V'lomo, ki Hashem elokecha mishalech b'kerb machanecha. Ze machne oren. Now, it's not only the Re'im, it's mufurish in Rav Sadigan. Rav Sadigan again in Perek Chav Dalet, the Perek of Milchamos, a Perek Esem Ba'alva Shar Milchamos, Ve'hein Sheish, Holishoyna Shebehen, Klole HaMachne HaNilcham, the general rules of the Machne HaNilcham. Mipnei Shebeseichai Hoya Arein Habris, with Soni Loima Ha'orein. And therefore the Torah asks Hatolas Mayim and Soy and everything. Everything is dependent on Oren, according to Rav Sadigan, which is the Re'im also. Now, it's not a website Ukraine and the Reim. But however, you find before and Chumash to say that Pshuta Shel Mikra, there's an organ here. The Ibn Ezra in the volume Perich of Gimel Pasuk Yud, the Rashbam in Perich of Gimel Tezvov, on the Poed Mishalech, the Ralbag all seem to point out there's an organ there. We pointed out last week that it's not clear on Ban that there is an organ, only Derech Abisenu. So we pointed out last week, there's a problem. The Ram clearly paskins, both in Sefer HaMitzvos, in Mitzvos Aseh Lamed Aleph, and in Mishnah Torah, in Hilchos Beis HaMikdash, Perek Gimel Ches, that lo yetz, v'yotzim min hamachne, that the Chiyuv Shiluach Abal Keri is b'teres machne Shechina. And it's the Mitzvos Aseh of Shiluach Machne, the same thing in Mikdash. So we have to understand, according to the Rambam, how the Machne Milchama becomes the Machne Shechina. The Gemara Pesachim assumes it. Samach Chesem and Aleph doesn't explain how. So it could be that it's only if there's an aura in there, and that's the Rambam's comment as far as the Isa of Yosed, the mitzvah of Yosed and Yod, that doesn't depend upon aura. However, Shiluach Machnos does depend upon aura. It's an amazing thing because there's no discussion at all in Chazal how, at least in the Gemara and Talmud Bavli, how the Machne Shechina, the Machne Milchama becomes Machne Shechina, but the assumption is that such a double portion that it just says that there's an Aseh and a lav to go for Tommy to go into or not to be sent out of Machne Shechina, of Machne Milchama. The Ramban assumes a double portion. That's shot in the Gemara. It's only because that there's a all in there. But we don't know, and there's no halachic mandate, how and why an Oren makes Machne Shechina. Ramban assumes shot in the Gemara. Doesn't explain how it happens. The Sifri, interesting, says that it's not Machne Shechina, but it's still Aseh Bal Keri with a Kal V'chomer. And Memela with the Kal V'chomer, no, you could Aseh Bal Keri, and with a Kal V'chomer, since it's Kilo or Machne Levi or something like that, it's certainly that you have this Isa Machne Shechina also. Like, listen to the Sifri. V'shochem and Machne, mi Machne Shechina, or Shemei Ani mi Machne Levi. Which Machne are we talking about? Talmudim mi Chutz LaMachne. Tishalchum. Ho'ad shelo yoyma, yesh li bedin. Im nitchu tmei mi Machne Oroin, Hakal, Kal v'choyim machne shchina chomo. It's just a kal v'choyim. Elohim Amrit came on Nashtem min adin, because the machne melchoma is not machne shchina. L'kach nema v'shalch min hamachne lamdecho shein oinchim min adin. But a machne ha'oloi is not machne shchina. According to Sefer says. Rabbi Oime ein tzorch kal v'choyim. Ein tzorch kal v'choyim im nitche tmei mi machne ha'oloi kal v'choyim hakal kal v'choyim machne shchina chomo. In came lomanem v'shalchim min hamachne kol tzur kol zov v'okos litin lahem es hamachitzos, each one in their place. So whatever it is, it seems to be very clear that the machne oroi is not machne shchina, but if the machne oroi requires shiluach, a kal v'choyim machne shchina. Here, there's a Rashi in Psochim, Samach Amud Beis, Kochim Nifsolim, Bosa Kochim, V'kos Hagodaitoch, V'ipnei Siluk HaMizbeach, Hu Meritoni Zovin, U'mitzoloyin Mishtauchin, Shei Mitzoloyin Nichlas L'digle HaShvotim, V'loi Zav, this is the important line, L'machne Leviim, Noisei HaOrem. The Noisei HaOrem, the Leviim, that's Machne Levi. She could have said, this is Dafka in Midbar, where is the din of Machnos. But whatever it is, Piskegov talks about Nosa Apkish Nosa Oil Moed in Chumash, by Midbar, the Nosa Oil Moed. But the Gemara Psochim, where the Ram quotes it in Perek Gimel B'Yis HaMikdash, and over here in Minyan HaMitzvos in Aseh Lamed Aleph, you get the clear impression that the Machne Melchoma is Machne Shchina and the Choyetz with Oren. We have no idea how that happens, and it's not the Sifri. The Sifri is only Kal V'choyim. You have to, and this is not the place to talk, I'm just mentioning something. Pashtis all over about Keri is Nishlach Chutz Mi Machne Levir. There's no mention of it in Rambam, in Mishnah Torah. So the fact that he equates Machne Milchoma to Machne Shchina as far as Shluach Balkeri, it had to be like that. We don't understand it 100% how it happened. Okay. Okay. Next. Next is like this. we pointed out last week that the smag counts the mitzvah of Yad and Yosed as one mitzvah in Minyan HaMitzvos. We pointed out before that the Halacha Gedolos does that, but it could be because he holds that the mitzvah of Yad is only a achona. But the smag talks about kilu is a tzivui of Yod and it's tzivui Yosed. It still counts it as one. Interesting is Rav Sadi Goyen's approach, and it's almost v'napochel. Rav Sadi Goyen, let me read it and then I'll explain it, okay? I read it before, part of it. I read the whole thing now. At least what's not gay to us. And it's very interesting things, at least in my opinion. On page 227, Perich of Dalet, the Shal Melchomes. HaPerek Esem ve'Arba, Arba Shal Melchomes, Behen Shesh. Holishoina, Shebehen Klole HaMachne HaNilchom. The general rules of the Machne that's in the middle of war. Very clear. There's an hour and a bris, that's for everything. All of Lot says, Michutzaloi. Fishom v'yot tiyeh l'cho. U'mishiz galas esrochim, gam hu. All of Lot says. V'yachbo badomo. V'yosed mi balzel. Shehimunach v'yachad im kli nishkoi. V'kashe oso tzrochov. All l'chasoisim bofo. Omu v'yosed tiyeh l'cho al azenecha. V'hoi v'shifta l'chutz. Umishiro le'tuma b'layla. All of Leois meruchak min hamachne haru b'yoisayom, because the machne it's a machne shchina. I assume the machne oren. It's machne levia. Kefi she'omar ki yiyeh b'cho asher lo yiyeh toho miklei loylo v'osa lo litbo b'mayim. Ad Sefer. It's a new din. He cannot do tefillah only close to Shkia. Ad Sefer Hayom. Kedei shelo yishkach v'yikones kfi she'omar v'hoye lifnois orev yirchatz b'mayim af al pi she'nitma b'chol mokoim mutaloi litbo mosai she'yirtzeh v'adraba kol shehu Toivel, Korov Yosef, Lizman Shenitma, how is it Meshubach? Here, the Torah Aseh, because wanted to bang it into your mind, this is Machne Shechina, or this is Machne Oren. You have to be very careful that you shouldn't set up a situation that you may, by accident, come into the Machne because you think you're tall. Amazing thing. But for us, what's important is the next word. Hashniya. Oso aleim. Sheitze imom l'mechoma. Mishnose isha b'oise shana. So it means these four things. The Yod. The Yosed. Shiluach, Machne of the Tomei Mikoi Laila, and the Isa of the Tful Yoim to be Tovel at Sefer Yoim are all one in the minyan of Perik Ha'eser v'Arba Shal Melchomes, because the Shniya is the next one of Noki Lebeis Shona Achas, and this is number one, and all this is number one. And here's V'nafoichu, always the the Rav Sadiq is making many mitzvahs, what the Ram counts as one, and the whole Perek Shiur Shvi is really against Rav Sadiq. The Rav Sadiq counts 11 mitzvahs of Tzoras Adam. So what's happening over here? Why is this, according to Rav Sadiq, only one mitzvah? So I would tell you a very simple thing. Rav Sadiq puts this under what the Ram calls Shiur Aleph. If you remember Shiur Aleph, we had a situation where a mitzvah has heker through many different things. And Tomi Yikra. And the Ram says all these performances together come into one mitzvah called Heker Mitzvah. I would tell you similarly, what Rav Sadiq is saying, all these performances together come in to become one, the pratim, and maybe you need all of them like Heker Mitzvah. Klole hamachne hanilcham. And how you have to look at the machne of Oren and how you have to act with the machne Oren. And it's a conglomerate of many different performances. And this is one mitzvah, according to Rav Sadiq in Minyan HaMitzvos. And really what's happening, if you look at the parsha, it goes like this. The pasuk, you remember, in Shiur Aleph, everything depends upon the theme, the matorah, or the tachlis. If it has matorah achas, all of them become one mitzvah. So the Torah has a prologue and an epilogue telling you what the matorah and the tachlis of the mitzvah is. And then in the psukim in between, it tells you how this expresses itself, how you show that this machne is machne shchina, or machne oren. So the pasuk Rishon, ki seitze machne alo yevecha, v'nishmarta mikol dovara. There's a separate shmira, maveris, in this machne because of its kedusha. And then at the end it says, Ki Hashem Elokecha mishalech b'kerev machnecha, latzilcha v'loses oyevecha b'yod lefonecha v'hoye machnecha kodesh v'liyeh b'chayer v'zdov v'shom achrecha. You want the klole kedusha of machne milchoma in order to protect the Shechina being there. So what do you do? Kieh b'chol ish asher lo yeh toho mikle loylo v'yotze michutz lamachne lo yovel toich hamachne v'hoye lifneis erev. He's not going to be terrible before. Yirchotz b'mayim v'ho Hashem b'shovel al toich hamachne. He has to be very careful. There shouldn't be a possibility you should forget. It should only be a tefillah dovos erev, because you have to be noyeg kedusha in the machne. How else does this express itself? This kedusha you have to be noyeg in the machne, as if it's a mokom shchina, a mokom of the oren. V'yatiyeh lecho michutz lamachne, v'yotzose shom chutz, v'yosetiyeh lecho al ezinecha, v'hoi v'shifta chutz v'chavalta bo, v'shavta v'chisisa sesa. This is Rav Sadiq. And the truth is, it's no steer to the Rambam. And the question is how the Rambam deals with this. But we had that problem anyway. The Ram doesn't identify the machne of Keri to the machne of Tzoya, because I assume the machne Keri requires all, and even never said it explicitly, and the machne of Tzoya does not require all. Next. I don't want to get involved in this because I think I spent too much time going back. There's issues of why or how the Chinuch says these mitzvahs are only noig b'fnei abayis. I'm not sure that's so difficult because the Rambam at the end of the Hakdama to Minyan mitzvahs says very explicitly, says Muhammad's require melech, and he ties it all, and it said there could be a catchword for everything that's noig b'fnei abayis, and melech and bayis somehow are tied together, I guess. And that's if you look at the Rambam there, you get the impression. Also, the Chinuch seems to be noig only Schorim. Muhammad's mitzvah is Nekevus and Schorim. So there is a Tosefta in the third parak of Megillah, which seems to say these mitzvahs, the Chofalta, is only in Muhammad's Rishus. It's not mashma like that in the Rambam. The Rambam doesn't really say anything in the Stimas Dvorov. It's not mashma like that. The Rambam doesn't quote the Tosefta Halacha. We're not sure exactly, and it's a problem. And the question is how Kala b'chopasa, and is the difference? Kala doesn't fight; she helps. I don't know. It's all, everything is only the Achlinim do that, and the late Rishonim do things like that, but it's only Ashoris. So I'd rather not talk about it. Okay, let's go further. A mitzvah, Chuf Sari Dalet. For a mitzvah, for arba v'tishim umeya. He shetzivonu lohoshiv es hagezela ba'atzma or be'eno. Im he nisheres ba'atzma or be'eno. If it's not been changed. And that's the Gemara B'Kamo, some Vov and Aleph, V'hoshev es hagzela asher gozal, v'heshiv es hagzela asher gozal, ma talmud loima asher gozal, im ke'en shegozal yachzir, v'im lav domim ba'alma boi shlum. Good. Now, this is where things, until this point, I guess it's okay. The Rambam adds over here that Tosefes Chomesh is part of this mitzvah. Okay. And then he says, oh, lo says domeho im nishtanis, which we'll talk about in Mitzvah Hashem, but it clearly says that if there was a shinoi and it's nishtanis, you have to give domim. That we know, but you get the impression there's a kim v'heshiv when you give domim, which we don't know that at all. And it doesn't seem to be the case in Mishnah Torah. We'll come to that in Mitzvah Hashem. Who Omroi Yisale Beheshiv es Gzela Shagozo Kvabiru b'Meseches Makes Shelav de Gezel who lav Shenit Lasei V'Omru Rachmona V'Omru the Matika Shmuel said, Rachmona Oma Sigzo. The Rebbeinu said she should not steal. Veheshi Vesagzela. And there's a Nitik Aseh. Here, I want to discuss something. We'll go on this. We'll get back to Tesis Chomish either this week at the end now. We'll see, Blinetta. Why is it necessary for the Rambam to say this Lavandik Laseh? He's not talking here about Malchus. You understand that yourself, because the issue of Malchus, if he'd be discussing the Lav of Leisigzel, but here he's discussing the Aseh of the Heshev Zegzela. So what does he want over here? Now, if you look at the parasha, you almost get the impression that V'heshev is a Gzela Shegozal is a Hakdama to the Chomish. V'hoyo kiyechto in Vayikra Perikei Pasuk Chof Gimel to Chavov. V'hoyo kiyechto v'yoshem. If a person was chayte, I guess he was nishbal shoker, and v'yoshem, I guess he admitted his guilt. V'hoya kiyechta v'oshem. So what should he do if he admits his guilt? V'heshev es gezela shegozal, or es oisher sheoshok, or es bikodin asher hofkat itoy, or es avedo asher motzo, or mikol asher yishova olov lasheker. Wherever he was nishbal l'sheker, he should return. V'shila moisei b'reishoy, v'chamishi soiv yesiv olov. And not only should he return what he has in his possession, but he should add a chomesh. On the day that he admits his guilt, or maybe it's the day that he brings the korban osh, v'yasashomo yovi l'Hashem, I'll tomid min atzayin ve'alkocho lo osham elakoyin. So I would have said, lefi pshuto shel mikra, v'heshev es hagzela shegozal is not a mitzvah, even though we were brought up as young children or as young adults or whatever. But the mitzvah shavas gzela, if we look at the parsha, it's not clear that it's on gzela, it's on oshak and aveda and a pikoda into sumas yod, whatever. It's not even clear it's a mitzvah. It's what he should do. How his tshuva should reflect itself. And because of this feeling of Oshem, because of his guilt, he should return everything. And then there's a mitzvah, moisim chomish. And it's not stam that until the chayte is moide, that he was nishbal hashoker, he's not chayiv b'chlal. Ein hanishba al kfiras momoin mishalim chomesh ad shiyoyde me'atzma. And v'hoye ki yechte v'oshev is a t'nai in the chiyuv chomish. Again, in Gzeilav Aveda, Perek Zayin Alocha Ches, Ein HaNishbal Kfilas Momoin Mishalem Chomish Ad Shiyod Ba'atzmai. Avim Bo Eidim Shu Oimed V'hu Oimed B'Kfilosai Mishalem HaKeren B'Vad Al Pi Eidim. Not because of his admission, because he didn't admit anything. But if he admits and he gives the keren, he has to give a chomish. But if it's because of Eidim, he's only chayiv the keren. Because of a moni gaboch, no chomish. They know mishalem is a chomish. Shachomish im akorban lechapora heim boim. They know maybe oisan ela piatzma. So you could have said that the Heshiv is not a mitzvah, it's only Sipur Dvorim. So comes Chazal in the Gemara Makis, that's a lava nitel aseh. Lava nitel aseh is a mitzvah aseh. And the Ram is very clear in Shiur Shishi that the three types of aseh with a lav. There's a lav in aseh and dover echad, like Shabbos and Yontif, Yom Kippur, Shemitah, and then there's an aseh kod malav, where lo siya liisha, lo yuchol l'gash koyomov, and there's another case, the case of lav and aseh. You have a lav, and you can mitake in the lav and not get malchus through the mekayim and aseh. But in lav and aseh, it's clear that there's a mitzvah aseh. So here we have to go to the next step. Because the Vaheshiv is Exela Shagozal, if you read Pshuta Shal Mikra, it's not only formulated by Gzela, but it's formulated by Oishik. Vaheshiv is Exela Shagozal, O Esha Oishik Asher Oshok, O Esha Bikodna Shehofkat, Itoy, Oy es hoaveda asher motza. O mikol asher yishovo lo vashoker. So it means if there's a mitzvah heshiv, it goes in everything. So why are we talking only about Gzela here? So maybe you could say there's an aseh klolus of this whole thing. But the question is that enough to misake in the lav? Since it mentioned Gzeil explicitly? And Itaka is the Heshiv is a Gzeila is a broad assay. It's only an assay about Gzeila, or it's an assay about everything. In Adarabba, in Ta'aziv, we do the opposite, because the word Ta'aziv by Matnas Aniyim refers to Peah, Leket, Peret, and Oilois. We make the same word into 4 mitzvahs. In here, the Heshiv explicitly talks about each one separately, and it's only one mitzvah. On the other hand, we have a mitzvah vashavas aveda, and it's not v'heshavas gzela. And that the Rambam has an Aseh reish dalid lo shiv aveda shnemo hoshiv teshiva me'achicha. So you could say that the mitzvah of v'heshiv is in pashtus of the law is only the case of shvuah, and the hashavas aveda is even without shvuah. That's mitzvah reish dalid. But everyone understands that, and anyone who quotes the mitzvah shagazal is independent of shvuah. The Torah discusses it in context of a shvuah, but the mitzvah is all the time. So it's very confusing how you play this out. The Pashto Pasuk is talking about many different things. The Rambam talks about Gzela. He doesn't talk about a Kiyum Hashov of Oishek and Pikodin and Aveda. You have a separate Aseh for it. This is so chiyum. So here, just have it just short time now. Losis domeim nishtanis. So I pointed out over here that the mitzvah of the Heshav is Gzeli even applies to Dom according to the Rambam. But Mishnah Torah, it doesn't. Because the Rambam says in Perek Aleph, Halacha Aleph, Kol HaGezel of Hilchos Zela Aveda, as Chaver Shavaputa, Oiva B'loi Saseh, Shenemo Loi Sigzol. Ve'en Loiken Alav Zeh, She'akos Nitl Aseh. She'im Gozal Chayiv L'Achzeh, Shnem Ve'eshav Zeh She'gozal. Vafilu Soraf Es HaGzela Eino Loike, She'harei Hu Chayiv L'Shalim Domin. So the Ram says that if the bed is not kayim, there's no veheshiv, it's only lavnik tashlumim, and that the Ram Pirush Mishnayis also works like that. In Makis, the second category of two Makis is a chelik asheni lavshit tashlumim. Ain't looking along. Can go in loy signoivu, loy sasik es lechav, loy sigzol. He calls loy sigzol on the Lavshit Tashlumin. And only in the fourth category, he quotes Lavnik Lasei. So if the Rambam in Mishnah Torah is saying it's Lavnik Tashlumin, so it means when you pay back the Domim, it's not a Kiyum Veheshiv. So it's very odd. In Pirush Mishnayis, it's not a Kiyum Veheshiv. In Mishnah Torah, it's not a Kiyum Veheshiv. And in Sefer Mitzvah, it is. Very strange. And the Gemara Makis seems to say also again Tezayim and Aleph. Gezel, the Achmon Oma, the Sigzel, Vejer Gzela, Mishkachas lo bekimo v'lo kimoy, ubitlo v'lo bitloy, Chosem kiva the Chayva Tashlumin, ein loika u'mishalim. It's not because of Lavnik Lasei, the Gemara says, because of ein loika u'mishalim. Eben Ozel discusses in Hilchos Gzela. Perek Aleph. So Mitzvah Shem, we have to pick up the issue of Chaimish next week, and move on to the next mitzvah, the mitzvah of Stoker, and maybe Hanik. That's